Thank you very much for coming today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and with me is David Engel. I'll be making a statement, and then Mr. Engel will make his statement. Then we'll be happy to take some questions. We're here today to react to the United States Supreme Court decision last week, 303 Creative versus Elenis, which has had a devastating impact on the rights of the LGBTQ plus community by opening the door to discrimination against them by businesses. David Engel, who is here with me today, is particularly upset by this decision because almost 30 years ago, we won what was then a landmark decision by the California Court of Appeals against a publisher who had argued that his business, Worthington Reunion Photographers, had a right to deny Mr. Engel publication of the photo of Mr. Engel and his same-sex life partner in the portrait section of Mr. Engel's high school reunion memory book. David had been invited to the reunion of the university high school class of 1977, and he was told that a memory book would be available. David was excited to attend his high school reunion, and he submitted payment for himself and a guest to attend and to purchase the memory book. During the evening of his reunion, David and his guests stood in line to have their photo taken for inclusion in the portrait section of the memory book. Couples who were not same-sex couples were having their photo taken for that section of the book. However, David was told by the photographer that company policy disallowed same-gender pictures of couples to appear in the portrait section of the book. The photographer suggested that David telephone Mr. Worthington if he was not satisfied. David did call Mr. Worthington, and Mr. Worthington testified later, quote, "When the call came, I was very much aware that he was of the homosexual community, and he made a demand at that time, at least I interpreted it as a demand, that his picture and his life mate be included in that book. And I said, I'm extremely sorry, but that's not the way it's going to happen. That it's my company, and I don't choose to use that format in the publication of my books," end quote. And that's from the California Court of Appeals decision 1993, Engel versus Worthington. Although the trial court decided in favor of Mr. Worthington, the California Court of Appeals reversed and decided that Worthington Reunion Photographers was a business establishment and that David Engel had been discriminated against in violation of California's Unruh Civil Rights Act. We were extremely happy about the court's protection for David and same-sex couples. Then last week, the United States Supreme Court delivered a crushing blow to the rights of David and countless others throughout this nation. The question now is, what, if anything, can be done to right this terrible wrong and restore whatever protection can be restored for this often persecuted minority of individuals in the LGBTQ plus community and for other minorities as well? I believe that it is necessary for the legislature in California and in many other states to take action to pass legislation which will clarify the kind of protection from discrimination that is still available under state laws. The US Supreme Court decision does not wipe out all laws which prohibit discrimination by businesses, but it does limit and restrict the protection that is available. I always say, and this is my quote, "First we cry and then we fight," end quote. Today is my 82nd birthday, and I promise to spend the rest of my life fighting to protect vulnerable minorities and women from the stigma of second-class citizenship and the denial of equal rights under the law. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce my very brave client, David Engel. And after that, we will take questions. David?
Thank you. 40 years ago, in 1983, and just when my Broadway career was taking off, I met and fell in love with Eric Underwood. 4 years later, in 1987, we made plans to attend my 10-year anniversary reunion from University High School in Irvine, California. I was excited and proud to introduce Eric to all my high school friends. The evening started out amazing for us as we bonded with old friends. We stood in a line for guests to have their portrait taken with their husbands or wives or dates to be included for the publication in a memory book that Worthington Reunion Photographers was hired to publish. We had all prepaid to receive a copy. When Eric and I arrived to the front of the line, the employee told us point blank that although we would be photographed, we would not appear in the portrait section. We were told that it's the publisher's policy and nothing we said made a difference. We were both stunned and blindsided. We did the photograph together and returned to our table deeply upset and humiliated. In my life, I had personally never experienced such blatant discrimination. When our friends found out, they tried to intervene. Again, nothing helped. All we got was Worthington's business card. The next day, I called Mr. Worthington to say that I wanted to have the photograph of Eric and me together published in the portrait section. And he told me that his publication was not a forum for the homosexual agenda and said, "So sue me," and hung up. I felt the hatred from that man, and my feeling of helplessness reduced me to tears. One of my classmates mentioned attorney Gloria Allred, whose civil rights advocacy, particularly for the LGBTQ community, was already familiar to me. Gloria took my call, took a meeting with me, and took up my case. Although filled with fear, particularly for my career, it was incredible to know that I had someone on my side. When she took the case, it made me feel renewed and empowered. The case was a battle. Worthington defended his discrimination on religious and free speech grounds. It became a very difficult public case with many defeats and appeals. Over the long haul, we became the targets of so much hate because of what we stood up for. Gloria and her team would not give up and continued the fight with me by their side the whole time. And after many rough years, we finally emerged victorious in the California Court of Appeals. We also received a very humble and contrite apology from Dan Worthington himself. The lawsuit took its toll, but I'm so glad we fought the fight and that so that so many others didn't have to go through the devastating discrimination that we went through. And I'm so grateful to Gloria and to her whole team for all they did for me and for so many others. And they all continue to do the fight against discrimination. Friday's Supreme Court decision was shocking and devastating. I immediately knew that all the work and progress we had accomplished all those years ago was suddenly undone. The news is massively disheartening, and I feel that we live in frightening times and cannot look to the courts for protection. I fought a decade-long legal battle for my right to be included with my life partner in my high school reunion memory book. I won that right for myself and my partner. And now, 30 years later, same-sex couples in many states will be left unprotected from discrimination. This decision is completely heartbreaking.
Thank you very much, David. Now, for anyone who would like to ask a question, if you would just type in the Q&A, and we will do our best to answer those questions. While we are waiting for the questions, David, would you tell us a little bit about your professional background I think you started on Broadway, what, in La Cage aux Folles?
Yeah, I was in La Cage aux Folles. That was 40 years ago. Next month. I had started a few years before that, dancing on television shows. I started as a dancer, working in Los Angeles in television and theater, and then moved to New York in 1983. And La Cage aux Folles was my first Broadway show. And over the years, I have worked on and off Broadway, multiple Broadway shows, regionally around the country, around the world. I'm actually in London right now, where 30 years ago, right now, I was in a West End show in London. And I'm here with my husband of 15. I've been partnered for 40 years, but legally married for 15 years. And we're here together seeing friends in theater. But we're
And
both.
that's a different person than you were with at the
It
high school
is.
reunion. Okay.
Eric was great for my 20s and that part of my life, and we're still very close. But Larry and I have been together for 30 years, legally married for 15.
Okay, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Could you name a few other shows that people might have heard about that you have also been in over the years?
Sure. I was in the last one I was in was Seussical the Musical on Broadway. That was oh gosh, that was 2000. That was 2000. But then we moved back to California after 9/11. We just didn't feel like it was the time to stay in New York. And we are now back in New York, and I'm working all over the place too. I did a show called Putting It Together on Broadway with Carol Burnett. It was a 5-person show that was Stephen Sondheim. So got to work with both of them, which was amazing. I recently did a show with Leslie Caron, a 2-person play, not a musical, but we danced. I got to dance with Leslie Caron, which was just a dream. And she's lovely. She lives here in London, so I want to try to see her while I'm here.
And the name of that show was?
6 dance lessons in 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
It's very much like Driving Miss Daisy. It's like 2 people who don't belong together, but end up being like best of friends.
Okay,
Lifelong.
now we're going to start. Thank you. We're going to start
Hey.
taking some questions. We have a question from Emily Valdez, KNX Radio. David, her question is, describe what you are experiencing emotionally with the recent rise in anti-LGBTQ laws nationwide.
I am incredibly disheartened by it. I live in a kind of a bubble in that the theater world is very accepting. So it's surprising to me that we're still fighting for inclusion and to not be discriminated against, because I don't get that kind of discrimination in my regular life with the people that surround me. And so I'm so surprised at this decision right now, and truly disheartened and shocked. I'm just sad about it. It makes me incredibly sad and frightened for the future of the LGBTQ community.
Thank you. If there are any other questions, again, just type in Q&A and we'll take it. So we will wait just a couple more minutes. I don't see any other questions right now. I think we covered quite a bit.
Not at all.
Yeah. But so while we're waiting to see, here's another one from Emily Valdez at KNX. What can be done now to turn the tide?
Is this a question for you or me?
She doesn't say. I'll take it. And
Yes,
then if
please.
you decide you would like to add anything, fine. We're happy for you to do so. Well, I often quote Mother Jones, who said, "Don't agonize, organize." And that's what we have to do. We do have to do that in every state in the United States, in reference to helping to win the legislation that is necessary in each state to clarify the laws in that state, or what should be the laws in that particular state, California or any other state, that, given the US Supreme Court decision, are still protective of those who are discriminated against. In addition, of course, as we always say, elections have consequences. And if when we get to the next presidential election, it's going to be important to elect a person who shares David's values and my values and the values of millions of others. In other words, who are there who vote to protect equal rights for all, rather than deny or restrict them, as has been done by this United States Supreme Court. So it's presidents who have the opportunity to nominate two vacancies on the United States Supreme Court, and then their nominations need to be confirmed or not confirmed by the United States Senate Judiciary Committee. So who is the president matters. Former President Trump had the opportunity to appoint or nominate three justices who ultimately were confirmed by the United States Senate Judiciary and who now sit on the United States Supreme Court and who have significantly affected the balance of power in favor of the conservatives, what appears to me to be political agenda, but that's what they've come in with. And so it does matter who's elected president. Also matters who is sitting on the Senate Judiciary Committee and how many votes on that committee will be for those nominees who come before the Judiciary Committee to be confirmed. And they should not be confirming anyone who would deny equal rights or restrict the rights of vulnerable minorities and women. So that is really important. That is voting for the members of the United States Senate is important. Voting for who's going to be in the legislature of your state is important. Voting for who's going to be in the House of Representatives in Congress is extremely important. Every person has the power to make a difference in this country. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't even have to have been a plaintiff, a civil rights activist, as David Engel has been. But every single person can make a difference with their vote. Okay. I think we don't have any more questions at this time. So I'm going to thank everybody for attending. We have been recording this press conference. It will take us a little while to download it and get it up, but if you are a member of the press and would like to request our recording, we will be happy to provide it to you, as well as copies of the statements that David has made and that I have made, and we will answer any other questions that you may have. If you have perchance recorded us yourself, that's fine. We give you permission to use that recording. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to your stories. Thank you so much, David. Have a good day.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Fight on. I will say this, that there's only been 2 times on my birthday over the 47 years I've been practicing law that I think that I ended up having to do a press conference or filing a lawsuit on my birthday. This one, and many decades ago, when I represented inmates in the LA County Jail who were being chained when they were giving birth, and they had to give birth and change. And radical that I am, I thought that was brutal, callous, and unjustified, childbirth being labor enough, so to speak. And so I went to court to stop the chaining of pregnant inmates while they were giving birth, and we were successful in that as well. So thank God for clients like you and for our client in that case, who were willing to fight the fight. Of course, I'm always happy to support our true heroes, such as you are, if, as, and when I'm able to do so. Thank you. Happy 4th, everybody. Bye-bye.